Massive news from the club football world. Sergio Ramos will be leaving Real Madrid after what you see there, an endless slew of trophies and 16 years at one of the biggest clubs in world football. At the age of 35, he is getting ready for what will be the next step in his career. Perfect time then for us to welcome into the show Sid Lowe. Sid, what more can you tell us? It seems like this news has been kind of percolating for a while, but still, when you see the press release, when you see there's a press conference tomorrow in Madrid, it feels shocking. It feels like the end of an era.
Yeah, that's it. You said it in a nutshell. This isn't a surprise at all. We knew this was coming. But it's true that when you see it in an official statement, when you see it there in black and white, it does kind of hit you a little bit, because I think there was always that sense that, well, maybe at some point, two very proud men, Florentino Perez, the president, and Sergio Ramos, at some point someone will back down. Someone will allow a way to find an agreement, and this just won't happen. But in the end, it has. It isn't a surprise. Their positions were very, very far apart all the way through these negotiations. The very fact that we got to the end of the season without a contract signed, bear in mind that, Sergio Ramos, as of tomorrow, will have 12 days left. I think it's, 13 days left on his contract. So, no one gets that point if there's a determination from everyone for them to continue. So this isn't a surprise at all. But seeing it in black and white is pretty big. We don't know what his next step will be. We do know that he's absolutely determined to keep on playing. He's got no intention whatsoever of retiring, despite being at the age of 35, and let's see how it's handled tomorrow, because both Ramos and Perez will be there, and it will be quite interesting to see them try and play that role where they like each other really. And of course we know that truth be told, they don't very much.
Sid, I know you said we don't know where he's going next, but let's speculate anywhere. Where are some of the options? What are some of the possibilities for Ramos' next destination?
Well, look, I'm very uneasy about putting these ideas out there, because one of the things that's been really clear over the last, well, I was going to say the last 2 or 3 months, but in fact this has been going back 6 months, a year, maybe even a little bit longer, is so much of this has been played out in the media. So every time you see a new team name mentioned, the first thing you do, of course, is try and work out, all right, okay, which side has filtered this and with which end? How real is this? How much is this a means of pressure? How much is this an attempt to try and force things along one way or the other? But the club names that have come out so far have been Paris Saint-Germain, Manchester City, Sevilla. Let's see if any of those materialise. I must confess, I think it's strange, and Ramos isn't the only one. I think maybe this summer will be different to previous years, that really big name players are in a situation where they genuinely haven't got their future sorted out. Because of course the normal thing for a player this big would be to reach this point, because even if we don't know it publicly, everything is tied up. In this case, it genuinely isn't, at least not yet.
Great to have Sid Lowe available to us. Also available to us, Julien, who joins the show live now. Jules, you just heard Sid mention that one of the potential landing spots for Sergio Ramos, PSG. What do you think of the link?
Yeah, he's been linked quite a lot with PSG. I think every time he wanted to sign a new deal with Real Madrid, suddenly in the press, the name that PSG was coming back, almost to put pressure, like Sid just said, on Real Madrid, and said, hey, if you don't give me a new deal, I'm going to go to Paris. They never really thought about it that much, to be fair. But maybe this time, because he's on a free transfer, there's no transfer fee to pay. But again, that's not a position where right now PSG are thinking about strengthening. They are happy, certainly, with Marquinhos and Kimpembe as the two starters. I very much doubt that if he keeps playing, Sergio Ramos would want to go somewhere where he's not going to play or not be the first choice or the first two choices at centre-back. That's why I still think it's very unlikely that he goes to Paris, but it's not impossible. Personally, I think, really, for the romantic that we all are, going back to Sevilla and finishing his career where he started all those years ago, 16 years ago now, since he left Sevilla to go to Real Madrid, I think it would be very beautiful.
Sid, central defence already kind of an obvious area of concern for Real Madrid. Where does this leave them heading into next season?
Well, look, let's start with the basics in terms of the numbers and the candidates to play in that position. Of course, they've already signed David Alaba, and so that changes things. And of course, that doesn't just change the way that they're set up for next season. It had an impact in these negotiations. All the way through these negotiations, as I've already said, in terms of the clubs that Ramos was linked to, also the whole situation with Alaba was kind of, all the way through, there was this sense, at least from Sergio Ramos' camp, that maybe this is a means of pressure. That Real Madrid maybe are putting his name out there as a way of saying to you, if you don't carry on, it doesn't matter. So that's one thing that's set up. I think the big question really in terms of the centre-back positions now is what happens to Rafa Varane. Because I think if you replace Ramos for Alaba, the rest of it is fine. Particularly as we've seen the back end of the season that Eder Militao has played very well. There's a belief now that maybe he is that player that they spent a lot of money on. I think it was 40 million euros or maybe even 50 million euros that they spent on Militao. I must confess, I can't remember the exact fee now, but it was a lot of money. And so now they think, okay, this is okay. The question mark I think now is what does Rafa Varane want to do? He only has a year left on his contract. Last summer he already intimated that he wanted to go. So Real Madrid need to make a decision on that. In terms of purely the roster who can play at centre-back, Ramos' position is already covered.
Sid, last question on this. What does Ramos wanting to leave Real Madrid tell us about the state of things at the club? Does he just not believe he can win there, before his time is up?
No, I must confess, I don't think it's about that. I don't think it's about a sense that Real Madrid isn't going in the right direction. I think it's much more personal than that. I think it's much more about the contract that he wanted. I think it's much more about the relationship with the club. It's much more, I think, about... I don't want to reduce it to money, but money is a big part of it, about the stage of his career that he's at. Bear in mind that this is a 35-year-old footballer, that fundamentally the point in which the club and the player didn't agree was on the length of the contract. Ramos wanted 2 years, Real Madrid wanted 1, that it would essentially be a continuation of the salary he was already on, minus 10%, which is being applied across the board to the squad. In fact, in some players, it's even more than that is being applied. And so I think this was about a negotiation. And I must confess, it does make you wonder if at some point this has been a miscalculation by someone. This has been a miscalculation about how far the club would go or how far Ramos would go, how far either of them would move to meet in the middle. And in the end, essentially what happened was that you had a negotiation in which the two sides put their deals on the table and those two deals stayed there. And there was no really significant attempt to bring them together.
Sid, what do you think the reaction will be from the Real Madrid fans? Obviously an iconic figure in the club's history, Sergio Ramos.
I must confess I don't really know in terms of the long-term reaction. I think the short-term reaction, of course, will be disappointment. I think the short-term reaction will be a sense of, the Spanish likes to use the phrase orphaned, a sense of kind of feeling orphaned a little bit in the short term. That idea that this guy who has been there for 16 years, who's the captain, who without doubt is the key leadership figure, and his departure is very significant in the short term at least. I think at the same time, though, there will be some people who believe that he should have given a little bit in negotiations. I think there will be some people who accept the position of the club, not least because, as we've already said, he's 35 years old. We saw the way that his career at Real Madrid has ended, and that's another thing that I think we have to keep in mind here. In 2021, he's only played 6 times, 4 of those for Real Madrid, 2 of those for Spain. I believe I'm right in saying that none of those have been a full 90 minutes. He has played when he wasn't really fit. He played against Atalanta not fit. He played against Chelsea not fit. He hasn't been right at the back end of the season. He hasn't gone to the European Championships with the Spanish national team, which is a pretty sad way for it to end. But what that might do, of course, is reinforce the idea of some of those fans that were doubting whether it was right to let him go. That may at least enable them to accept a little bit more of this on the grounds that, well, okay, look, this is a 35-year-old player who, although we thought he was in fabulous physical condition, at least until Christmas, since then hasn't been. And I think that means that, how do I put this? In the cold light of day and stripping away all sentiment, I think the swap, Ramos for Alaba, I think there will be some fans who think, actually, this possibly isn't that bad a thing to do.
Well, thank you very much for watching ESPN on YouTube. For more sports highlights and analysis, be sure to download the ESPN app. And for live streaming, premium content, and let's not forget as well, ESPN FC 7 days a week. Subscribe to ESPN+.